I'm here in New Lebanon, New York to get a look behind the lens of photographer William Waldron. Follow me.
I walk through the world and I see things sort of deliberately. I look at things very carefully, and I'm apt to take one step to the left or one step to the right and take another look at something if I think it looks a little better from there. I've been a photographer literally my entire life. I think I was given a camera by my father when I was maybe 5 or 6 years old, and I've hardly ever put it down. I'd say there was a lot of hard work, and yet I got really lucky. I was in my first year in college studying liberal arts, and I called my parents from the payphone in the hallway of the dormitory and told them that I wanted to go to photography school. There was some reluctance and some concern, but no real pushback. When I graduated from school, I was of course wondering what to do with myself, and I kind of knew in my heart that I should move to New York, and that anything else I might do would have been a little bit of a cop-out. So I moved to New York with $300 in my dad's old suitcase. I found someone who had a spare room in an apartment in Brooklyn, which I rented from him sight unseen. And I started looking for work as a photographer's assistant, which is sort of an apprenticeship. An additional reason for coming to New York was that Art Kane was in New York, and he was a photographer, an American photographer whom I lionized. He was a contemporary, mostly fashion photographer, and I had come across his work for many years in photography publications. I would call his studio, as I would call every photographer whose phone number I could get my hands on, studio, and ask if I could come in and for an interview as a photo assistant. I was told no, that I couldn't, and they were fine, and I could mail a resume in, which I did about 8 times. And I finally obnoxiously took to knocking on the studio door and telling them that I happened to be in the neighborhood and I wondered if I could just drop off my resume. And I think at a certain point they asked me to stop doing that as well. And but I did meet someone there, and one day the phone rang, and they were down a photo assistant and asked if I would come in, and I did. Being a photo assistant in New York is how I learned to be a photographer, as distinct from how to take pictures. They're two very different things. If you're going to work as a photographer in any commercial way, for magazines, for advertising, you need to know, how to get a job, how to edit film, how to deliver a job, how to get paid, basically how to conduct yourself, and they don't teach that in school. After about 3 years as a photo assistant and running a studio for a photographer, I decided that it was time to go out on my own. And I was determined to draw a line in the sand. I had seen some friends sort of straddle both worlds and keep working as an assistant and hope to get a few jobs of their own. And I instinctively knew that wouldn't work for me. I had to just declare myself a photographer and go out and try to find work. So I decided to take a trip, really to take pictures and to build up my portfolio. A friend who spoke Spanish offered to accompany me on a trip to Mexico, where I had never been. So we took off for 5 or 6 weeks on sort of a photo safari through the state of Chihuahua in northern Mexico. There is a community of about 50,000 Mennonites in the state of Chihuahua, and we happened across this large tract of land where they were farming, and it was just stunningly beautiful. The people were interesting and pretty exotic. So I returned to New York City now that I had declared myself a photographer and put this portfolio together. And I literally called every magazine on the newsstand. And I went to see them with the same portfolio. I would go to Vogue magazine and Sports Illustrated on the same day and show them the same pictures, and it never occurred to my young mind that photographers actually specialized, because in my mind, it was all photography and I loved all of it. I remember saying to one of my friends I thought I was in the entertainment business because people would always thank me profusely and tell me how much they enjoyed looking at the pictures, and I'd never hear from them again. One day I went to House and Garden magazine in the Condé Nast building, and I had made an appointment with someone to see the art director, and the art director was a woman named Karen Lee Grant. And I had the same response from Karen that I had had many times, but the next day her photo editor called me and gave me my first job. So I was thrilled. I think I went in and had a meeting with her. I was then sent to the Cathedral of St. John the Divine to photograph the stonecutters. After doing a bunch of these stories for House and Garden, the art director, Karen Grant, called me into her office again and said that she was going to send me to photograph a house, as that's primarily what House and Garden magazine did. And I told her, "Oh, no, you're not. I don't know how to do that." And she said, "Well, I'm sending you with Babs and I know you'll be fine." So off we went and photographed a house in the Hudson Valley of New York. And I came back, I had the film processed and sent it to the magazine, and they liked it. And they sent me to do another one, and then another, and then another. So House and Garden magazine was published by a company called Condé Nast, and all of their magazines were in a building called the Condé Nast building. And they were all quite competitive with one another. So as soon as my name started showing up in House and Garden, the phone really started to ring. I was getting calls from Vogue, from Vanity Fair, from GQ, from Gourmet. Working for all of those different magazines was really making my dream come true, because I felt vindicated in my idea that photography is photography and I didn't need to be specialized. I'm mostly known as a natural light photographer. I love natural light, and I'm the last one in the evening to ever even think about turning the lights on. In fact, I sort of obsessively turn switches off everywhere I go. Well, I'm definitely a romantic, and I love to use the camera to bring an idealized version of things. I think you could generalize and call my pictures contemplative. They're very deliberate and quiet. All my life, my relationship with art, I think, has been transportive, ever since I was a small kid, and it really continues to now. I see things in a certain way, and I endeavor to bring you there, to bring the viewer along with me. I have so much gratitude for the career I have and that I've actually been able to pull this off. Even during the most lean years when I didn't have enough work, I had good work, and I feel forever grateful.